Mark Rogers TV, Florida edition, bringing in, of course, David Waters from Gators Breakdown to help us with Florida's bowl matchup with Iowa. But David, before we get to that, of course, always a quarterback situation, at least in recent years, where you're looking for an upgrade, and that upgrade could possibly come from Baylor and one Jarrett Stidham.
Right, he's looking to go somewhere, transfer after all the negative things that went on at Baylor between Art Briles and a lot of allegations going on there. Briles got fired. Stidham thought it would be best to continue his career somewhere else. So he's looking that now. We thought kind of Auburn was in the lead now, and he had a radio interview yesterday with, I think, Taylor Ham of Texas A&M 24/7 site, and he told him last night that he's going to delay his decision, but he does still want to be on campus somewhere by January. But it was Jim McElwain and Doug Nussmeyers, the Florida head coach and offensive coordinator. He was their first visit after the SEC championship game. Sunday, they went to Stidham's house. They visited him there. Of course, they left a good impression. And Florida's still waiting to hear back if he's going to visit the Gainesville campus anytime soon. So of course, the questions are: we thought Auburn was in the lead, probably still are. He has a really good reputation and a really good kinship with Rhett Lashlee, the Auburn offensive coordinator, and Gus Malzahn as well. So. And now it looks like the reason he's probably going to delay decision is he wants to see, believe it or not, where maybe Art Briles and Kendall Briles, his former coaches, end up if they get jobs somewhere else with, Baylor now having a new head coach, Matt Rule. So it's, of course, it looks like anything to do with Art Briles, Kendall Briles is going to be gone from Baylor. So he's probably going to see where those guys end up. But Mark, I mean, just as good as I do watching this Gator team, they're missing a quarterback, and this is one that could probably step in day one and make something happen.
Okay, following Art Briles, I don't want to call that blind loyalty. We'll just stay with the loyalty and then let people make their own judgment based on that. We talked about it before we started the record button. Jarrett Stidham 2 years ago in relief of Seth Russell, who got hurt, and SEC fans don't belly laugh. Maybe you can snicker when we're talking about performance and statistics against Big 12 defenses. But, the kids can sling it. He's got obvious talent against Kansas State, 23 of 33, 419 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks in that game. And Kansas State can usually play some decent defense. Oklahoma the next week, talent on defense, but we know with the Sooners, sometimes the effort's not necessarily there. 16 of 27, 257, a couple picks with a couple touchdowns, and a big day against Oklahoma State where he threw for 258 in that game. He hit on 68% of his passes, 12 TDs and 2 picks. So the kid has talent. There's no question about that. Will he find his way to Gainesville? Your thoughts, Dave, about the matchup against Iowa? So this is a matchup we've seen like 3 times in the last 12 or 13 years against the Hawkeyes. And that's what happens when you've got contracts between the Big Ten and the SEC in 3 bowl games. And sometimes they even find a 4th in there. And sometimes the like-seeded teams kind of match up a few times and wind up facing each other a few times. But I don't know if anybody's going to score in this game.
That's the way it looks. You're right. If you go back and look at it, Ron Zook had a game as Florida head coach against Iowa, and Urban Meyer had a game against in his first season. It was a game against Iowa his first season at Florida in a bowl game as well. So, both of those were in the Outback Bowl. So Florida and has went through coaches, and all the same while Iowa still has current Ferentz there, and Zook faced him, Urban Meyer faced him, and now Will Muschamp got to skip it. So it's now Jim McElwain's turn. But you're right. This is going to be a phone booth in the box slugfest type of game. You would expect it to be low scoring. Who knows with bowl games, all the preparation that you get for these games. But that's exactly what it looks like. Florida's going in averaging 23.4 points a game. Iowa 26.8. So yeah, you're looking at but with these 2 defenses, Florida's only given up 200, almost 300 yards a game, and Iowa 352. So yeah, you're not going to see a whole lot of offense here, I don't think. But it's kind of 2 programs, 2 teams right now going in kind of opposite directions right now. Florida ended the season after the big win at LSU with disappointing losses at FSU in the SEC championship game against Bama. But Iowa, ever since they kind of got crushed in back-to-back weeks. Well, they didn't get crushed by Wisconsin, lost 17-9 there, but got crushed a week later against Penn State. So those two teams that played in the Big Ten championship game. But after that, rattled off 3 straight wins, including one over Michigan, 14-13, shut out Illinois 28-0, and then against Nebraska in the finale, won 40-10. So Iowa ended the streak ended the season on a really good streak there, beating some good teams and scoring some points. So, if Florida doesn't come ready to play, there's going to be some questions. Does Florida finally, even in a bowl game, burn a red shirt for one of the freshmen just because, Michigan game 1 next year? Do you maybe get them some experience here? So that's be something we can discuss as time goes on, and if there's a decision being made, we'll hit that. But it is interesting that Florida may be looking at that going into this game.
Hey, Dave, if it's a tight scoring game, you can hope that Kirk Ferentz has not brushed up on his math skills since the Wisconsin game, because as soon as you brought that up, I remembered the situation where they were down by 11. He didn't kick a field goal on like 4th and 5 with about 6 minutes to play because he said he needed to go for the touchdown to make it a 1-score game. This guy's getting paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he's one of the I think he's a tremendous football coach, but it was just funny that he didn't quite get that one right. But Iowa's an interesting team, as you mentioned. They pulled a shocker against Michigan, and they really took on a team, Nebraska, that you would put on the same level. It was like a 2-point spread, according to Vegas, and just manhandled them. I got to see a lot of Iowa late in the season, and they look like a different team than the one that lost to North Dakota State. I always find it interesting when and I know this Florida team's not flashy offensively, but the Florida brand is flashy versus Iowa, that it's a kind of a dichotomy of the Florida speed versus Iowa. They're going to come up, and the offensive linemen are going to have the sleeves rolled up and ready to go, and they're just kind of different, coming from completely different parts of the nation and recruiting stock, and it's just an interesting time when the Big Ten gets together with the SEC, and we'll have plenty of time to break it down in detail coming up. So, Dave, we always appreciate the time, man.
Thanks, Mark.